And there was contention over the weekend after online reports about green lanes being closed on the island during the TT period this year. The Department of Infrastructure has applied for temporary closures of a small number of routes between the 23rd of May to the 6th of June. And DOI Minister Dr Michelle Haywood joins us in the studio now, en route to the House of Keys this morning. So just to start with, can you clarify which green lanes are closing and why, first of all?
Yeah, so there's a very limited number of green lanes that are closing. Park Llewellyn, Peg Willis Road. I have to read them out because I don't know where some of these are. Govlock Road and Snayfell Mines Road and Glen Alden. And they are tracks that by and large lead to the uplands. They lead to a dead end effectively. And what we saw last year was an increasing number of visitors who were driving to the end of those tracks. And then once they got to the end of the tracks, they were freestyling it across the hills and across the peatland. And so we did find some riders last year, but you can only find the ones that you can catch. And it would be daft of us to position policemen and DEFA rangers up the top of those uplands in order to try and watch over them for the whole time.
And there has been a bit of backlash when sort of rumours of what was happening during TT came out over the weekend. What have we seen and what's been the reaction so far?
Well, I was engaged with various people on social media last night. I know that there is a petition underway and I think people have completely misunderstood the headline that comes out that says greenways closed during TT. It is just not true. Selected greenways are closed for very good reasons, and that was done in conjunction with both DEFA and the Countryside Access Group, who requested that although we could catch people and we could find them, the damage has been done environmentally, and so they would rather we just didn't have the damage. The rest of the greenways tracks, which includes things like the Glenroy track that goes up to access the TT course, they will be open, and so people who usually use those tracks for access to the course can still do so.
Okay. This isn't just during TT, though, is it? In November, there was an appeal put out following off-road motorcyclists going on to, urging them to stick to legal routes and respect boundaries after reports of criminal damage. This in November, so way outside of TT time. Is this a problem year-round?
It's easier when we've got when there aren't lots and lots of visitors here. It's easier for us to do an education piece and say to people, please stick to the tracks. You know, you're right. In November we said it because we know it lands and we know it's a local that's kind of come off the road, if you like, literally. But actually, you know, when it comes to having lots of visitors here, and you've got tens of thousands of visitors, and we know that people bring over their trail bikes in the back of a van as they come over as well, intending to ride some of those greenways, it's just so much harder for us to police it. And as I say, once the damage is done, it will take years for some of that damage to be recovered. So this is just a really, really proactive, responsible move on our part to say, let's just stop those ones. They don't lead anywhere. And it's almost an invitation once you get to the end of the track just to ride across the hillside. And we know it just causes so much damage.
You mentioned there how hard it can be to police this kind of thing. Is there are we going to see a campaign in the days just before TT to inform visitors coming across on the boat, for example? I
think it'd be quite sensible for us to be putting at least leaflets or flyers on the boat as people come across, because that's obviously nobody's flying in with a motorbike. They'll all be on the boat with their bikes. But yeah, just to have some information there reminding people that the greenways are there and what the rules are around using the greenways and pointing out which ones are closed.
As we mentioned, this sort of bubbled up over the weekend, not necessarily the sort of right information out there. So how do you, as a minister in Isle of Man government, sort of combat that? We know when there are sort of voids of information these days that they're always filled, not necessarily with the right information. So as part of the Council of Ministers, how do you and your colleagues sort of look at dealing with that and making sure the right information is out there?
I think that's something we've been actively discussing recently is you know, that if we allow a story to start running on social media, it will have grown legs and done 3 laps around the block sometimes before we can respond. And I think it's probably incumbent on us who know the facts of a situation to get out and try and counteract it as soon as possible. But I spent hours of my time on social media at the weekend dealing with this, dealing with pensions, dealing with EasyJet, cancelling flights and things. And it really is hard sometimes because that social media setting tends to run so quickly that sometimes things have happened. You know, you take a couple of hours out because you're at a meeting with something, and by the time you come out, there's another story has broken and another set of comms that needs to go around that to unpick it. And I think there is a huge amount of misinformation that gets spread, and that's it doesn't help anyone. It doesn't help us trying to rail back on it,
Yeah,
and it doesn't help the public understand what's going on.
Could government be doing more to combat that misinformation? You engage on social media. Is there more that could be done?
I think so. We have, a fairly small comms team, and we have, and those officers have working hours that, I don't encourage anyone to do the kind of hours that I do. But so yes, we could actually, we could step that up and try and do it. But I'm grateful for being able to come in here today and just lay this one to bed. I've seen there's a petition going. If the petition lands with us, it actually isn't going to make very much difference, to be fair, because I'm absolutely settled that this is the right decision to have made to protect the uplands.
And now, I've never been on an enduro bike, but I imagine those who do go out quite often might be feeling a little bit like this is a step towards persecution on their part, and their space to be able to take part in this activity is being more and more restricted. What would you say to them? Is there still space for them on the island to do this?
Oh, absolutely. And I pushed back last night. Somebody said, it would just be easy. Just put a gate across the bottom of those roads and close them off. And I thought, that's not a good idea, because if we put a gate there, there's a temptation that somebody will decide to close the gate at some point in the future, and you'll start seeing those number of greenways that are accessible to people disappearing. But responsible use of the greenways, absolutely encourage it. It's one of the greatest things to do on the island.
Infrastructure Minister Dr Michelle Haywood, thank you.
Thank you for making it to the end of the Manx Radio Newscast. You are obviously someone with exquisite taste. May I politely suggest you might want to subscribe to this and a wide range of Manx Radio podcasts at your favourite podcast provider, so our best bits will magically appear on your smartphone. Thank you.